Well, we've got an interesting new development in the race for the White House, and it ties back to the American economy. This morning, we learned that the jobs market has been softening, and we've seen that reflected in a steep sell-off in the stock market. Now, how that will factor into how investors think about what the stakes look like for the election, and if we do actually see a recession in the United States, how does that influence some of the political leanings? And for more on all of that, I want to bring in Greg Valliere, Chief U.S. Strategist with AGF Investments, and covers the political dynamics closely. Greg, it's good to have you with us. First of all, since we are seeing a broader stock market sell-off, and there are these worries about whether there's a recession looming in the U.S. right now, what do you make on how that impacts the campaign itself?
Well, first of all, great to see you, John. It could affect things, although you've got to say for the last year or so, the American voters have thought the economy and the unemployment rate were terrible to begin with. So this may just be confirming what we had. I think there are a lot of other sectors, though, you've got to say could be helped, especially housing, which has been in the doldrums. Housing might start looking better. Anything interest rate sensitive could actually start looking good.
And what's the general view when it comes to the economy, how Americans are leaning candidate-wise? I know we're trying to get up to speed on how voters, broadly speaking, feel about Kamala Harris, and the polling would suggest she's now polling much better than Joe Biden had been polling. But on this specific issue of the economy, what are the data telling you?
Oh, I think the data is showing that we've got a softening coming. We may have 2 or 3 weak quarters. The unemployment rate I think, warrants the Fed acting aggressively. I think the big debate, John, over the next few weeks is whether we not get 25 basis points, but do we get 50?
And again, how might that influence the messaging we've seen from the Harris camp and from the Trump camp?
Well, it all depends on the spin. Everybody's got a different spin. The Republicans will say this shows the economy is weakening. The Democrats will say we finally have lower interest rates. So you can spin it, I think, in both directions. The big story, I would say, over the last few weeks has been just the utter lack of momentum on the part of the Republicans. They're in a deep slump. Vance has not turned out very good. Trump has not had a couple of good weeks. So even though the economy may be softening, I think there are a lot of other factors that cut against the Republicans.
And do you think that ultimately will influence different sectors of performance? We've spent a lot of time recently trying to figure out, depending on who's leading in the polls, what that says about certain sectors of the American economy, the kinds of stocks people might want to be leaning into, that kind of thing?
Yeah, you make a good point, John. I think that, in the spring, everyone was talking about the Trump trade and that Trump was going to win easily. And that would be good for tax cuts, for energy, for anything that's regulated. I think the feeling in May and June was that a Trump victory would be a positive story. Now, all of a sudden, this dramatic turn just in the last few weeks, I think everything is turned on its head. And you now have a situation where I think the tax cuts that everybody was counting on are not necessarily going to come. I think she's going to be tougher on regulatory policy, not as good on energy policy. And if Harris wins, we're still a long way off. But if Harris wins, I think that the Trump trade could be demolished for quite a while.
What do you think broadly about how the stock market fits into this? There's a lot of historical evidence. I know everybody wants to talk about this particular trade or that particular trade, but in election cycles, generally investors find themselves in a somewhat bullish mood. They've been pretty bullish this year. They're definitely not bullish this week.
Yeah,
but what does history tell you about investing cycles in and around presidential elections?
Well, I don't want to use a cliche, John, but I would say volatility is the word. I think we're going to be volatile for quite some time. I think the direction of the economy is unclear, and all of a sudden we have this very dynamic woman who is perhaps leading. You look at some of the Vegas odds, and Kamala Harris is looking good. That I think gives us a long stretch, another 2-3 months of uncertainty. Frankly, I think we may go to election night, the 5th of November and beyond, before we know for sure who won.
Now, on the debate front, and obviously the debate that we saw between Joe Biden and Donald Trump led to a lot of change, including the fact that we're now talking about Harris versus Trump. But there's been constant talk about whether or not we're ultimately going to see a debate between these two. Do you think it'll happen?
I think so. I think Trump is probably stunned right now to see how poorly Vance and he are doing in the polls. And I think Trump might need a little boost. So, yeah, I do think he'll go for a debate. The thing is, Kamala Harris is good. She is a very, very good debater. People who know her know that. And I think if Trump gets into a debate where he just throws insults at her like he did this week in several meetings, it's going to hurt him.